So, welcome to today's microchat on strengthening career pathways through state and institutional policy alignment. My name is Karen Elzy. I am the Interim Executive Director of Workcred. Workcred is a nonprofit affiliate of the American National Standards Institute. The focus of our microchat today really has its roots in some work that was funded by the Greater Texas Foundation and the Powell Foundation that really looked at alignment of state and institutional policies with for higher education institutions and specifically community colleges in the state of Texas. So our presentation today is really going to focus on Houston City College and the work they have done to strengthen their career pathways and how they have done that while keeping the student at the center and student success at the center, while also focusing on state policies that need to be met and looking at institutional policies that need to be supported and developed in order to ensure that students succeed in their programs at Houston City Colleges and then contribute to the Texas economy. So I'm going to introduce my colleague, Taryn Baptiste. She is the manager of accreditation, licensure, and certification at Houston City College. She is going to begin by giving an overview of some of the work that they have been doing. We'll then have some time for Q&A between Taryn and myself, and then Q&A with the audience. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to Taryn.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Karen, for that wonderful introduction. As always, great to be amongst Workcred colleagues, in addition to some new faces and names. Once again, I'm Taryn Baptiste. I'm the Accreditation and Licensure Certification Manager at Houston City College. So we can kind of go into just kind of the landscape of what HCC looks like. So next slide, please. So as you can see on this map, we have 21 locations spread across the Houston region, which we are located in Harris County. We are divided into 13 centers of excellence. Basically, our programs are divided within the same academic disciplines, which is what we call centers of excellence. In addition to academic programs, we have over 60 workforce programs that offer AAS degrees, C1s and C2s. I am actually housed in the district office at HCC in the Workforce Research and Development Division. Next slide, please. So our work with this project was really rooted in House Bill 8, which is what we call HB 8 here. In 2023, the Texas legislature basically changed how community colleges were funded in the state of Texas. As you can see from the slide, we have 50 community college districts in the state of Texas. Rather than being funded now by the number of students that were enrolled in courses at HCC and other community colleges across Texas, we are now being funded by completion. And those completers are based on different tier criteria based on the types of awards that community colleges offer. Again, certificates in addition to the traditional associate degrees, in addition to now industry credentials, licensures, and certifications, which we call ICLCs. And we'll kind of get into that later into the presentation. So how is HB 8 affecting Houston City College? So as you can see, that base tier is based on contact hour enrollment and is meant to ensure that small and rural community colleges meet basic financial obligations. Since, as you saw on that map, we are not considered a small or a rural community college, and our tax base is too large. We won't get any funds in that criteria. So ours will be based on that performance tier criteria. So it'll be based on the number of credentials of value awarded, including continuing education units, certificates, and degrees that position graduates for well-paying jobs. And they will also receive funding based on high demand fields where employers are looking for skilled employees. in addition to our dual enrollment and also the CE courses in any of our fast track credentials, for especially those for economically disadvantaged students. And so with this slide, we kind of simplify it again because with those different funding criterias and the different awards, it gets really complicated to understand. So for us, this graphic helped us a lot. The funding reform for higher education is performance-based allocation. It also aligns with industry, so the program must demonstrate workforce relevance. And then for the outcome metrics piece, success measured by completion and also employment of students are now being measured, as opposed to in the past it was just about the number of completers. That was our bragging point. But now we are concerned about, are they truly getting employment in those fields that they're graduating in now? And so just to kind of talk about different fundable credentials again, just so you can kind of see it illustrated here, especially at the community college level, because we always highlight the associate degrees. But we are now at Houston City College. We now have two bachelor's degrees, bachelor's of applied science. One is in artificial intelligence, and the other one is in health information management. So you're seeing the associate degrees, the now bachelor degrees, the level 1 and level 2 certificates. We also have the advanced technical certificate, our CE certificates, and our occupational skills awards. And I also discussed previously that in addition to the traditional awards that you think about at a community college, we are now receiving funding for those institutional credentials, that the licensures and the certifications, the nursing certificates, the welding certificates, things of that nature that students either can take an examination for to receive a licensure or certification, or in some cases take a series of courses to obtain that information. So we hear that ICLC acronym thrown all the time here. And with these third-party credentials, for to be funded by the state of Texas, they have to be listed in the American Council on Education's National Guide, which is known as the ACE Guide. And the caveat with this is that a lot of the licensures and certs that we offered, they weren't necessarily a part of that ACE Guide. So we're kind of looking into ways of trying to figure out a way to advocate without ruffling a whole lot of feathers at the state on why certain ones were chosen as opposed to others. And also, these credentials of value, they must meet a certain cost benefit threshold that includes a positive return on investment. Again, it's not about the student just now coming through our colleges and obtaining a degree, but is it truly going to provide some form of upward mobility? So the state is interested in seeing, will the student earn enough within 10 years after completion? And also, will those wages, based on the credentials that they've earned, will it surpass a typical high school graduate's wages? So just to kind of give you an idea of what the ICLC world looks like here at HCC, approximately 78% of HCC's workforce programs offer students the opportunity to earn one or more industry recognized credential, either at the program level where they have to complete the entire program, or at a course level. As you may be aware, you can take one course sometimes and be eligible to get some type of certification or licensure, or take a series to obtain something. So as of December 5th, 2025, we currently offer 341 duplicated certifications and licensures. And that is comprised of 249 credit and 92 non-credit industry recognized credentials that were duplicated. And the unduplicated grand total is 144 credit and 85 non-credit. And we have to report it like this to the state. So that's why we get really granular, and we'll talk about later on how are we able to kind of keep track of all of this, and also note that it's not in our student information system yet either. And we also have 28 programs that are for credit and 5 CE that offer occupational licenses or certifications that are required for employment. As you're aware, especially in the health sciences, these licensures and certifications are required for students to go to work, which in turn is required for the students to as a graduation requirement. So we have what we call our industry credential database. This is housed in Smartsheet, and this is some of the main columns of how we're able to kind of keep up with our industry credentials, in particular the licensures and the certifications. And I have to shout out that we do at HCC have a industry credentials coordinator, my colleague Oscar Trevino, who touches this basically every day. So I always like to highlight that because I know many institutions don't just have one person to touch this information constantly. So in that database, we are housing the award name, the level of the award. Is it an AAS? Is it a C1? In many cases, some awards, some programs have a myriad of different awards. We keep up with that CIP code, the SOC codes, because that kind of determines the earnings potential, in addition to what level of employment that a student can obtain. We keep up with the primary wages. We also hone in quite a bit on that work-based learning piece quite a bit as well. We do see the differences in our workforce programs with those that have robust work-based learning as opposed to those who don't, where it may be a voluntary type of thing. And then dual credit. At HCC, we have thousands of students who complete dual credit. So it's always interesting to watch to see, one, will the student then transfer into HCC within that same pathway that they chose while in high school, or just simply are they coming back to HCC? And then that HBA value, as we just kind of discussed those different tiers, we're kind of able to kind of keep up with what tier these awards are in, so we can kind of do our own forecast of funding as well. The contact hours piece is really important. As you saw on the previous slides, 144 contact hours. So again, just having something centralized where we can see everything. The credit hours piece. Is it a certification or is it a license? The relevant courses that apply to that licensure insert. In many cases, faculty tried to do curriculum changes. So a lot of times we come back to the database and we say, well, before you change XYZ, think about how this course matters to this particular licensure insert. So you can always kind of keep that in mind in regards to curriculum and development, and also that time for completion. And also too, as another part, because there's so many columns on this database, we talk about how much is the test. Is it offered at one of our campuses, or do students have to go to a testing center? So again, we do our best to make this have this database basically tell us a story of where we are in our current state of ICLCs. And so we kind of talked about this already in regards to the 144 contact hours, or it has to be at least 9 semester credit hours. And the credential awarded in that high demand field, as defined by our governing body, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, and includes no fewer than 80 contact hours or 5 semester hours, in particular for that industry credential or licensure or certification to be funded. I kind of talked about already the ACE guide and how some are a lot of credentials that we offer are not a part of that ACE guide. And also just talking about the third party credential program content is either embedded in a course, which it is a lot here at HCC, or is it a standalone program? And that third piece of this is if the third party credential is conferred for successful completion of the third party instructional program in which a student is enrolled. So again, sometimes we have the program where they have to meet the curriculum requirements of the state. in addition to that third party licensure agency that they're getting their credential in. So these are all the things that we have to kind of keep in mind to ensure that one, we still have a certain level of academic integrity for our students, yet still meet the requirements of the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board curriculum requirements, in addition to now thinking of the funding requirements for the sustainability of the college. So, as I mentioned, I am a part of the workforce research and development division. And so once House Bill 8 came out, we were really kind of charged with all these things that I just kind of talked about on how can we be compliant, yet still have a certain level and still have academic integrity to provide student success. So the three things that we were charged with that made sense to ensure that HB8 could be compliant with HB8 and get buy-in from the faculty too, is that we three things were the top priorities for us. It was one, doing curriculum alignment maps, figuring out how to make sure that all the credentials that we had, they were stackable and we were able to, and how we could bundle those credentials. And also too, and I lead this task force, is continuing education to credit task force, because as many of us at our institutions know, continuing education, in many cases, it can be students coming back to upskill or reskill, or it could be a totally brand new student who's never gone to college, but they like the format of CE. So we wanted to ensure that we leveraged CE to the best of our abilities to be a on-ramp into credit, and vice versa, actually. So the benefits of curriculum mapping, we are really big on ensuring industry partnerships and validating the competencies that are offered in certifications and licensures in the field. Like, for example, in our HVAC program, we have a great partnership with Johnson Controls, where they come to all the advisory committee meetings. They have giving the program millions of dollars, in addition to offering work-based learning. That those types of relationships are just greatly valued and needed, in particular in our workforce programs that are required to have advisory committees. But it's nothing like having an industry partnership that endorses your college, in particular workforce programs. And the other part of the curriculum mapping is the student success. You always want to be able to improve learning and engagement. You always want to kind of revisit and see and talk with faculty and find out what are they doing in the classrooms. And a lot of times, especially with a system this large, faculty don't get to come together and kind of talk about, well, what are you doing in your class that's supposed to be the introductory class? And I'm teaching the class that's in the middle. And then I have that last class where they should have mastered coursework. So we got a lot of aha moments in this process by kind of talking with the faculty in a safe space regarding the curriculum design, and just kind of talking about where their students are and where they felt like they could better serve the students. And also the third piece of this was the high quality programs. Again, the continuous review. Sometimes especially with as many programs as we have and as large as this system is, there's not a continuous review, especially even if they are accredited, because sometimes the accreditor does not come back for 10 years and things change. And through this process, we found a lot of gaps and redundancies. For example, maybe students should be introduced to the fact that there is test prep for certain licensures and certifications in the beginning to kind of get rid of some of that those testing fears that students have. Maybe there is too much redundancy in the second course that our students take, or maybe it's not enough reinforcement in that second course, depending on the level of the level of the type of course that it is and how much material that they need to cover within a semester. Next slide, please. And a part of that was reviewing the program and the award information. In some cases, the SOC codes may have needed to be up to date. We brought in the advisory board to have some real conversations about where the program is, and they got to tour the facilities. They got to talk with the students. We have 82% of our workforce programs are accredited. So those peer reviews have been quite essential for faculty to kind of get upgraded facilities. And get more staff to have more boots on the ground, or even things like more testing vouchers through our Perkins grants. Seeing if there were certifications or licensures that could be aligned with the programs. In many cases, some of them they had industry credentials that could be aligned with the program, and they just never were aligned or promote with that program or promoted or embedded. And then that work-based learning opportunity, again, just trying to ensure that if there is one available, or even if there was not one available, just kind of thinking about how to incorporate that and bring in more industry partners for that. And then the dual credit option. Again, we have a lot of dual credit students here at HCC. And again, going back to the academic integrity piece, we do understand that we cannot plug and play all high school students into certain programs because they do have age requirements. And then there are also time requirements, but there are certain ones like welding or culinary, or even some in business that you can introduce to a student in high school, then we do so. And these are the resources that we use for validating competencies. In some cases, they don't have an accreditor, or they don't have a certification or a licensure exam. So we do use ONET. We do use Skills Engine. We do use Clearinghouse. We do go to the Texas Workforce Commission and look at their website to kind of see what emerging careers are out there, or which ones are in need of certain types of workers based on the workforce programs that we have. We do have our marketable skills on our program web pages. We do encourage our faculty to kind of talk about the soft skills and the hard skills that students need, just to kind of frame the picture better and stop making assumptions that students notice, or they are just getting this by attending lectures and labs. We're doing our best to explicitly get the information out there to our students. And so going back to the steps of the curriculum map, again, just kind of verifying using SOC codes, validating the competencies, and identifying the courses that are a part of the course map. Designing a curriculum map, and we'll kind of see one. And there'll be a QR code at the end where you can kind of see the actual curriculum map that we use here at HCC. Identifying where the student learning objectives are. And again, those 3 steps of curriculum design: introducing, reinforcing, and mastering. And again, having those uncomfortable conversations about where the gaps and the redundancies are. And, developing a course sequence to try to get that student success that they need for that, so they can be ready for the workforce. And so this is our full-fledged curriculum alignment process. And again, we were just really intentional about trying to create intentional graphics for our faculty to use, in addition for it to be promoted to our students as well. And we can move on to the next slide, please. So the credential maps that our workforce and development team had 3 instructional designers, and they were tasked with coming up with graphics that we believe that our students would be best for our students to utilize, so they could really understand what stackable credentials are. You can say it, but it's another thing to see it, and you got to be able to see it and be able to understand it as well. So again, we are including continuing education and going all the way up to the associate's degree and promoting that transfer. Next slide, please. And so in the beginning, it kind of looked like this. Not the best graphic, a little confusing on if I was a student starting in continuing education. In my mind, I'm finished, right? As opposed to, wait a minute, I can be a CE student, and then now I've got my taste of it. I should be able now to seamlessly transfer into credit and now get an AAS and possibly even think about transferring to a 4-year. So that's kind of how we started, and the next slide will be where we are. We think that this is a much cleaner presentation of what a credential pathway would look like in regards to when we say stackable credential. We're actually showing the actual award. As you can see, we used the culinary arts pathway. We started with the C1 going from a prep cook, and you see the actual award. We have the time of completion, what a starting salary would look like, what a median salary would look like, and even the annual openings going all the way to an AAS with that same information. Again, we wanted to be as explicit as possible for our students, and we got some pretty good reception from the students saying, yes, this is much better. I understand now what I can do with HCC and most importantly, what I'm getting myself into it as well from a salary standpoint and a time commitment as well. So we've created a bunch of different great tools, curriculum alignment maps. We've created also what a curriculum map would look like, and some various other templates that you can access from this QR code. So I would encourage you all to take a snapshot of it, and we are open to feedback as well in regards to some of the templates that we've created as well. And so going back to the continuing education piece. So we kind of talked about what the continuing education piece would look like to align it to credit. And then we did some research and we decided to bring some external folks in. And those folks were the Educational Strategy Group, known as ESG. And as the leader of that task force, I can't tell you how invaluable ESG was to us. And on that next slide, you will kind of see the action plan that we kind of developed. One was treat all students as students. Sometimes the CE students don't get treated the same way as the non-credit students, which is not good because they, in order to get more buy-in from students and you want them to stay and come back and promote your institution, you want them to have access to all the things. You want them to have access to all student services, library services. We were finding out that our CE students didn't even get an ID card upon enrollment. So we had to go back to the drawing board. We wanted to treat them the same way that our credit students are treated. And as you know, the students are the best recruiters. Building pathways between non-credit and credit credentials. Again, it should be a seamless process. If I took a non-credit course in ESL, then if I decide to go into the credit ESL program, it should be a seamless process, like a articulation agreement. Because again, I was at HCC 5 years ago. If the competencies from these courses are still the same as they are now or similar, then I shouldn't feel like I'm starting over again. Actually, we should be blitzing the student to come back. And so we're having all these kind of thought processes now. And aligning departments and governance. What we've done is that a lot of the programs, academic disciplines that CE and the academic side share, like for example, business, they are now under one COE. They now share advisory committees. they are now, they are no longer working in silos, because what we're finding out sometimes CE's doing some really amazing things, and they really are touching the industry sometimes even more than what the credit side is. And also this the faculty just kind of talking. We found out in many cases that the credit side of the house, they have faculty that also teach the CE side. So just kind of sharing what those experiences are. And the next block is the making the programs credit worthy or credit based. We didn't have a legend on what that looks like. What if I took this many hours in CE? What does that translate to on the credit side? So now those are all things that we are doing to make the process easier and removing the barriers to transition. We found that there were just a lot of different barriers for students. So I know I've gone through quite a bit of material really quickly. So if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer, or any comments as well. And also just before I forget, definitely want to thank the Greater Texas Foundation, the Powell Foundation, in addition to Workcred, because this gave us an opportunity to really highlight some of the work that we were already doing, but also kind of go back to the drawing board and be really intentional about what's working and what's not.
Great. Thank you so much, Taryn. And I encourage for those of you who have questions, either raise your hand using the raise your hand feature and or enter them in the chat. And I'm happy to read them, or we can unmute you. But I'll start out while people are thinking about questions. Taryn, thank you. You put forth a lot of great information. One of the things that struck me was that House Bill 8 continues to evolve, right? And new changes are made with future legislative sessions. You mentioned that not every certification or licensure is listed in the ACE guide, and yet you have aligned your programs to quite a few certifications and licensures. So what are you doing to bridge that gap? Because you've done this curriculum analysis, you've done this alignment, and now these certifications or licensures might not be in the ACE guide, and those certification and licensure bodies might not even know that it exists.
Yeah. So it's two things that are happening. One, obviously, we're not going to, obviously there are some programs where they saw that their programs were not considered credentials of value with the state. So that obviously, obviously that was an uncomfortable conversation, but obviously as an institution, we still had to provide them with reassurance that one, your program's not going to be deactivated tomorrow because of these set of guidelines. Thankfully for us, as you saw, we do have a robust text base, and we're also trying to be creative as well. We're having discussions about meta majors where we're trying to put some things together. Like, for example, we put the interior design is a part of the construction center of excellence. I think that is a great marriage. You start talking about conversations about what would it be like to have some business courses in Cosmo. And just to kind of go back into address your question about what is it like when they're not on that ACE list. Again, still trying to be advocates to the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board to say, hey, have you all looked at it from this standpoint? We have hundreds of graduates coming out of these particular programs, but they're not identified on this particular list. And we're still kind of waiting for some additional guidance. And I do believe that list or parameter will change, but us as an institution, and you hear me use this word a lot, we're still really big on academic integrity. Obviously, we want funding to be sustainable, but at the same time, we have to be really strategic about our programs, and definitely it's a process when you start talking about deactivation.
Great, thank you. Emily Rafael had a question. This approach seems like it will set you up well for workforce Pell. How are you planning for or adjusting your strategy for that?
Well, definitely in regards to, we are super, super excited about Workforce Pell. So, one, definitely beefing up continuing education, as I talked about, the on ramps and the off ramps of continuing education. Also, getting our advisors more informed about, when students sit down in their chair, about what programs they want to pursue, in addition to financial aid um, counselors. And going back to, when people come to community colleges, they typically think about that gold standard associate's degree. Let's not forget about the C1s and the C2s and the OSA. So again, just kind of promoting the multitude of different awards that we will have, that will be available for Workforce Pell.
And Emily also had a question about, is there a digital credential strategy aligned with the programs that you've been developing?
Yeah, we have talked about micro credentials um, quite a bit here at HCC. Um, and I think our biggest dilemma is on how to roll them out, in addition to the other myriad of programs that we have. And I think, to be truthfully honest, it's just a naming convention that we're kind of getting caught in. But definitely, with the amount of credentials that we have, we are moving into the micro credential space, because as we see on LinkedIn and other places, folks highlight them. So it's just us trying to figure out the best communication plan to roll it out.
And Taryn, Holly Zandel had a question. Could you provide a little more information? You mentioned that HCC now offers two bachelor's degrees, which is a relatively new offering for the institution. Can you talk a little bit more about those bachelor's degrees? And particularly, I believe you said one was related to artificial intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and we're also trying to roll out one now in business. So, with the Bachelor's of Applied Sciences, we had to kind of go to the drawing board and think about the ones from a workforce perspective um, that would be beneficial for the Houston economy. In addition to it playing on other programs that we currently have at the associate's degree level. Um, and so obviously a lot of folks now are kind of throwing up bachelor's degrees, because it sounds really lucrative. So we, with the bachelor's degrees, it's just like any other degree. We did have to get it approved through our coordinating board and through SACS, and we are starting to have really good foot traffic. I can provide enrollment numbers to you. I can send those to you, and my wonderful colleague, I see she's put it up there in the chat, the link. But we are starting to see really good foot traffic, and we're also looking forward to getting the Bachelor's of AI and Robotics accredited by ABET. We just have to wait for that first graduating class. But I'm happy to say that we're starting off slow with the bachelor's degrees, just to kind of see how it's going to attract our students, especially being in a marketplace like Houston, where we have a myriad of four-year colleges. But I mean, I'm happy to say that the enrollment in both programs is good.
Great. And Christina just put in the chats that you had four graduates, the first graduation, over 30 this next round, and over 600 are enrolled this year for the AI degree. So that's definitely exciting and exponential growth. So congratulations. Can you talk a little bit about, so you've done a great job, right, with all these workforce programs, and you're embedding, as you said, industry recognized credentials potentially at the program level or at the um, course level, and people can take ICLCs that lead to licensure and certification. What are the challenges you face about getting the information about whether the student took that certification or licensure and whether or not they successfully passed? And what do you need to be more successful in that space?
We need formal data agreements with all of the third party vendors. A lot of them in the health sciences are able to get the information from the test providers for their students, but it's so many where it is truly really manual, where we like, for example, for real estate, because that is a public they do have a public facing database, but you still come up with challenges. Again, it's a million Jennifer Lopez's. So um it's those kind of challenges. We have a report that we do annually where the coordinating board is asking for this information, although they know that in many cases that is challenges, but they still just want, some kind of data to have, just to kind of see where our students are, and it's extremely difficult. In many cases, we can't buy testing vouchers for every program with Perkins, and even with that, you're not guaranteed that they're going to release the student data. So in many cases, we are actually calling and emailing the students, asking them did they pass or fail these examinations. So now, with that being a funding requirement, I could only imagine how this challenge will continue. And we've also are in the process of now having those ICLCs put in the student database for the first time, so it can reflect on the student transcript as as data tracking. But again, right now it is 90% self-reported. So we put that in bold in every report that we do.
And then you talked, you had a multitude of different approaches that you're using, and clearly there's a lot of work that's been happening at HCC. If there are other colleges that are, participating in this conversation, or certification bodies that are on the call, what do they need to know about, like, who should be involved in this work at the college level? And when you're working with certification or licensure, what do you need from them in order to figure out who the right contact is for you to be working with? And then what are the sticking points that you're experiencing?
Okay. Well, the stakeholders at the college that have to be involved, definitely your chief academic officer, definitely those in student services. And when I say student services, I mean advising. I mean advising in regards to them promoting the different types of credential. Um, Also, the financial aid piece, as we kind of talked about with workforce for Pell, because a lot of times one of the main reasons students don't continue their degrees or even pursue one is the fear of not having the financial resources to do so. Um, and you also have to have your workforce division and folks that are interested in doing credential alignment. And also, too, you have to form those relationships with industry. The education lingo and the workforce lingo, sometimes they just don't align. So you've got to have those fruitful relationships, because you can't say, we have a gap in employees that work in the energy industry, but they've never talked to education to understand what skills should be provided in the classroom that transfer into particular industries. And what was your second question, Karen?
Yes, I think I was looking, how do you get there? I guess one of the questions is, how do you get the commitment, right? So once you know who needs to be involved, what does it take to get them on board with wanting to work through these processes? Because it's one thing for me to say yes, it's another thing for me to actually do the work, right?
Well, yeah, definitely. The buy-in, definitely. HB8, obviously added fuel to the fire. But again, when I talked about those curriculum alignment pieces and how the faculty had those aha moments, it's just simply about having somebody in the room that's not afraid to ask those uncomfortable questions and explain why I'm asking these uncomfortable questions. So that was what made our team so great, is that we did not by no means act like the subject matter experts, but we came in as advocates to in the name of student success. And I think that makes the difference of being able to understand what questions to ask, what kind of tools to have, and how to then make make some of the things that we did a part of their new culture in regards to all things curriculum, as opposed to kind of being an arbitrary decision like, no, let's bring it to everyone.
So we know that community colleges, and you mentioned this, have worked with advisory boards for a very long time. But there's always been kind of, whether those advisory boards have been used effectively and have been as successful as they could be. And I know that the state of Texas provided some guidance about changing the format for advisory boards. What did you do at HCC to make sure that faculty were getting what they needed from advisory boards and vice versa, that the advisory boards really saw a benefit of that specific program within one of the HCC institutions?
Well, one, we revamped the advisory committee handbook. That was number one. Again, we don't make assumptions that everybody just knows how to host these meetings, or they know when their favorite advisory committee member now needs to be rotated out. So we made a pretty comprehensive advisory committee book as a reference tool for our workforce programs to use. And again, it highlights things like, make sure they take a tour of the facilities every year. Make sure certain meetings agendas or contain this kind of information. Obviously, with COVID, a lot of things became online, and that's okay if you can have half in a room for lunch, and then you can have some online to still feel a part and have some buy-in into the institution, and also have some students attend as well.
Yeah, student voice is really critical, right, in all aspects of
Yeah.
this.
Yes,
You know,
absolutely.
you've done a lot of work up to this point, and I think we all in our jobs get to the point, okay, we've done the work and now we're done, but your work's never done in terms of curriculum alignment.
No.
That is a continual process. So, what challenges do you see going forward to maintain this curriculum alignment process across all of HCC's workforce programs?
Yeah, well, one, we know attrition is a very real thing in particular in education. Folks go to different positions, they retire, and XYZ. So again, for us, it's about just being real change agents and continuing to introduce and reintroduce this work, because it really and truly is dynamic, and just making sure that for us in our department, we know a little bit about everything. We work extensively with what I call the HCC universe, to kind of understand the stakeholders, who's the new program director, who's the new program coordinator, and just kind of going out and kind of serving as change agents. Like, for example, before a new curriculum change can happen, we have a electronic system. So now I'm a now voting member of that, where if a new program comes, I get dinged to say, hey, since you manage third party accreditation in addition to the licenses and certifications, how will that how will this new change, that will it have any bearings on the accreditation or the licensures and certifications? And sometimes it does. And so I have to now pick up the phone and say, hey, we can't make this curriculum change because your accreditor wants you to have XYZ into play. So again, it's about culture change, and it's about working together and not working in silos. And it's about the processes in the procedures. If certain things are embedded into the processes in the procedures, then they don't go into the wayside. That's my opinion about that. And I think we're doing a pretty good job of that as of lately.
So I have two final questions for you. One is, in your experience, what would be the two critical things you would tell certification bodies that want to establish more effective relationships with community colleges? What are the most important things that they need to know and how to do?
One, we would like to have a face of their certification body. We would love to just have a contact person where we could discuss certain things with, and have those data agreements. We know that there are ways to release data to institutions in a manner that is compliant, legal, and we all employees at the institution have to follow FERPA. So that would be very, very helpful, and just to have a face of it, because we have logos, we know the testing centers, we know all of this information, but no, we don't have a face, and we don't have anybody to talk to when there are certain concerns. And it's a very it's a process that is not where we just don't have a face. We have buttons to press to send money, but we don't have a representative of a face of a lot of these institutions to kind of talk about some of our concerns.
Great. Those are two, like, I think really critical points, right? Like, who is the contact at a certification body that an academic institution could call to learn more or to discover if to have a problem addressed, right? As opposed to going to the abyss of the unknown. And then let's that same question, but apply it for your colleagues in the community colleges, who you've worked with very closely. What are the two things they need to know to better, do this type of alignment between their pathways and the state and institutional policies and to maintain it over time?
Well, one with my colleagues, definitely continue to immerse yourself into this. In particular, the academic disciplines where the licensures and certifications are. You are the subject matter expert. Your voices matter. Um, your students matter. So if there are things that are going great with that, voice it. If there are some things, because we do meet colleagues that say, I don't want to approach this particular agency because I don't like XYZ, and they've never been able to kind of voice that concern or just figure out innovative ways to try to still bring that competency into the college.
Great. Any last questions from the audience? If not, I'd like to thank Taryn for joining us today and for all the great work that's been happening at HCC, and for all of you to join us. And I will cede back 7 minutes of your day. And I look forward to seeing you at a next WorkCred micro chat. Thank you so much.
Yeah.